Good evening, 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 5th. We'll be ready to begin the Finance Committee. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Peter Demers had told me a couple of weeks ago he wasn't available, so I'm the assistant chair, and I will be hosting our evening. First on the agenda is minutes for last week, September 29th. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes. Are you one here?
I was here, but I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to do a second on them since I wrote them.
Oh.
I can second.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Let's see, there, under item 3, there was no indication for the race to the top requirements that are embedded in legislation passed in January by the governor. The school committee chair agreed that he would provide the details of that requirements, those requirements, and Uxbridge is to receive $99,000 over 4 years, so it looks like it's about $25,000 a year.
Did you want them attached to the minutes? Is that why you're bringing it up for the minutes?
Well, yeah, I think that the requirements were in legislation. Apparently, the school committee agreed to those requirements when they made the application, so they ought to be in a general forum, I would think.
Would it suffice as, I understood it that the requirements haven't come down yet and haven't been agreed upon. Would it be enough to bring it up under old business in the future?
No.
So that it could be attached?
No, because the legislation was in fact passed, and if those requirements were not in legislation, the federal government would not have accepted the application of the state of Massachusetts.
I understand that, but the Massachusetts DEC has not come down yet, or DESE has not come down yet with its recommendations and its qualifications for each town. That's what I understood. I also don't feel that it's necessary to have that level of specification in the minutes. I would agree, I would like to see it as an attachment, but I don't believe we have the information available to us right now.
That's correct. We do not have the information available to us right now.
Any other discussion?
Let's see, in 7A, I asked the several questions, one of which was, had the Board of Selectmen in fact approved $70,000 as a change to the budget, which then resulted in at least what may or may not have been a clerical error of $43,070,000 enumerated as the budget. So, let's see, Ed wasn't at the meeting, Mike Slovic wasn't at the meeting. David, were you at the meeting? August the 25th?
I believe so, but I don't,
Whoa,
I
whoa,
don't
whoa,
believe
whoa.
that the purpose discussed.
Are you saying that this isn't that what's in the minutes is incorrect?
Are you,
It's not in the minutes.
okay, are you making a motion to add additional information into the minutes?
Yes, I would like to, I'll make a motion to add my question of, did the Board of Selectmen approve $70,000 for traffic study, and take it out of their contingency fund?
So I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of, I can't remember the date.
29.
With the amended question.
Still writing. The,
I'm sorry, did you make the
Traffic.
motion or did Howard make the motion?
I made the motion.
Okay, we need a second. I'm sorry, we need
She seconded it.
okay.
We'll keep you up.
No, it's fine. I thought Howard was making the motion, that's why I was confused. I'm not sure we need a motion.
discussion on the motion.
I'm sorry?
I asked if there was discussion on the motion.
Oh.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Wasn't there.
Okay, it's 2-2.
Doesn't pass.
I'm sorry, no, that's correct.
Does not pass.
So I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
But you already have that motion on the
Oh,
floor. It's
Yeah,
already-
exactly.
now you can call for a vote.
I'm sorry, but I do have,
Sorry.
I have a quick note. But Howard, are you finished with your notes on the, with your questions on the minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Under 5, new business, it says Chief Freitas was present, provided more information. Would you like to put who was present, or was present and provided?
To provide,
Okay.
that's what I said.
Was present to provide, okay.
Let's do that change. Make that change.
Do we need an additional motion as changed? Okay.
No, we just need
No,
to
just-
correct it.
Okay. Anything else? That was the only thing I caught. Great. All those in favor of the minutes for the 29th? Aye, 3?
I wasn't there, so I can't vote.
No?
3-1-0,
3-1-0.
3-1-1.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Motion to open the public hearing for the fall annual town meeting.
Second? I mean, you should wait for her to introduce the topic before you make
Sorry.
the
Oh,
motion.
sorry, I was,
It's all right, I'm not.
Territorial?
All in favor?
Aye.
4?
It's not necessary to vote to open a
That's
public
okay,
hearing,
we
so.
vote.
No.
So are you abstaining?
Yeah.
Okay, 401. Great. We are starting with Article 1. Transfer unexpended, unencumbered fund balance to Water Enterprise Fund. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate a sum or sums, including unexpended, unencumbered fund balance to the Water Enterprise account, or take any action relative thereto. Hi, David.
Hello,
Welcome.
Madam Chair. Thank you very much. This is very similar to the one that we did this time last year. The difference is we had one more payment come in the amount of $22,023. If the Finance Committee will recall that we moved a little over $300,000 into the Water Enterprise last year. This is one payment that came in after the fact. So, much like it was set up last year, where before we did the movement of the unexpended, unencumbered fund balance into stabilization, we had this, and we had the cable transfer up first, so we put it in the same order as well.
Great. Any questions, discussion, anything from the public?
Make a motion, we recommend favorable action on Article 1.
Let's see, would it be all right if the committee asked a few questions?
Absolutely.
Wow,
I
okay.
asked about the committee first, and then I asked the public. Please go ahead.
David, what is the balance of the so-called general fund unencumbered and unexpended?
Fund balance?
Yes.
We have not certified that as of yet.
I see, so we don't know how much it is.
No, at this,
So it could be $22,000, it could be $222,000,
that is correct.
it could be 12 cents.
That is correct.
And why do we want to transfer I understand why we want to transfer
Mhm.
22,000, but we don't know from what
Well-
we're going to transfer.
Based on a very basic calculation that we've already done, we don't see any general fund budget deficits from fiscal 2010. We've already had departmental turnbacks. This receipt, for instance, is an excess receipt, and we pretty much hit our target for our receipts. So we don't see any reason why this funding won't be available to make the transfer. But I just can't tell you with specificity as to what the balance is going to be until we do the calculation.
When do you expect that to occur?
We expect to have it probably by the third week of October, the latest. But once again, we're also at the whim of the Department of Revenue. So,
Is there anything going to be earmarked for use of these funds?
yes, actually, there's been some discussion about the purchase of wellhead protection land. Well, there's nothing that's been finalized on that yet. We believe that we are going to use this fund to offset the debt of that particular fund. And you might remember that town meeting passed an authorization of $550,000 a few years ago to purchase the Canawson property. We have not purchased that as of this point, but that authorization is still out there. It's out there as a borrowing authorization, and we believe that it makes sense, looking at where the interest rates are right now, to rather than just, if the board goes ahead and makes that purchase, rather than just take it out of enterprise fund retained earnings, use this particular fund to offset the debt probably over a 5-year period.
This particular fund, you lost me there.
Okay,
You said you wouldn't take it out of the Waters Enterprise Fund.
Retained earnings.
out of the retained earnings,
Oh,
because,
okay.
you talk, generally, it's certified about $800,000 a year on average. So if you took 500 out, you're taking a pretty big hit against the retained earnings of the Water Enterprise Fund. And so instead, what we do is we bond that out for probably a 5-year period and just transfer $100,000 a year out as part of the Water Enterprise operating budget to pay that debt.
I guess my question, David, would be when, once the funds have been certified by the Department of Revenue, to have a chance to look at the various enterprise funds to see what their balances are and to how they relate to the activities, because, I mean, they work fine, but I'd like to have some overview of them, and the Board of Selectmen
Certainly.
as the, what do you guys, the commissioners, what do you call those, water and sewer commissioners? Need to do that as well, but I think it'd be helpful, as Howard pointed out, to asking the question about the fund balances, to what the status of the funds are and how they're being utilized.
Yeah,
We can certainly do that.
actually, I believe that, that Peter Demers had talked about that as well, and that would be on subsequent Finance Committee as we go, not necessarily specific to this.
Right. Once we have everything certified, what we're going to do is we'll put together a memorandum that'll have the analysis of each of the funds, that shows what the inflows are, what the budget turned back, and, you know, obviously what we had collected, which will give you a rough idea of where we wound up. And it's used as the basis of discussion when we're doing the rate setting in the spring anyway. So we'll assemble that as soon as we have those certified.
Okay, that'd be great.
I have a question. I must have misunderstood this, but you don't know the balance of the fund that you want to authorize a transfer to come out of because it hasn't been certified yet, correct?
That's correct.
How do you come up with $22,023?
Because that is a receipt, that is a hard receipt
Okay,
that
so-
came in.
That came in, so you know that money is in there.
We know that that
We
in
know we
all
got the
the
money.
purposes.
We know we got the
should be
money.
That's all we know. We know we got the money.
there. We have the money.
There could be a lot of other pluses and minuses in that.
David, as of June 30, what was the value of the water enterprise retained earnings? Approximately.
Oh, damn, I just was looking at that too. I believe it was around $800,000.
Yeah, you know something, I had the warrant article for last May with me, and I just put it away.
Any other questions? Again, ask the public, any other questions? Okay. I'd like to wait until we, not close, but continue the public hearing to vote on everything. Is that all right with everyone? I think it might work more smoothly. Okay. Article 2. Transfer unexpended, unencumbered to the PEG cable access account. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate a sum or sums, including so-called unexpended, unencumbered fund balance to the cable access account, or take any action relative thereto. David?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, again, an article that we first brought out last year. As you know, due to discussions that we've had with the Board of Selectmen and the lack of discussions, or the lack of information that we've received from the Department of Revenue. At this point in time, the town closes out the Cable Special Revenue Fund, which is really what it is at this point, out to the out to free, unexpended, unencumbered fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. And we put forward this article to allow town meeting the opportunity to then take that balance and move it back into the special revenue fund.
So this is a routine article that we're going to see over and over again as we go forward.
It appears
if
so,
and when
because
there's a
I seriously don't think at this point in time we're going to get any information from the Department of Revenue. So as long as there's a balance in that fund, until it's expended, this will probably be a standard fall warrant article.
You did this last year, didn't you?
Yes, we did, for the
This is
first time.
Second year? Yeah.
Before that, we carried the balance,
Exactly.
and
So
there's
the
no
same
legal
question
authority
comes
to
out
do
of
so.
this. You know how much you put in,
Yeah,
there's no dollar amount.
there's no dollar amount because we have to see what's left in the special revenue fund, in the cable fund at the end of the year, and that's one figure that we haven't got to yet. But it'll be a significant balance, probably very similar to last year, which was just a shade over $400,000.
Public questions or comments on this article?
I have two
Oh,
questions.
I like to do the public first, I'm sorry.
No, it goes the other way around, start with
Okay.
the committee.
Sorry.
Let's see. David,
Yes,
you wrote to some bird in Beacon Hill who has a very large desk,
yes, and it's still there,
and the stuff was on
on
his
their desk. That was the Commissioner of Revenue.
Commissioner of Revenue, and you have never heard back from him.
I have not.
Now, he is a paid employee of the state?
Technically she, but yes, she is.
Okay. When are you gonna send a follow-up request?
We sent a follow-up request in June, and I will probably, I like to follow up with it every 6 months, and I don't even get a response to my follow-up, so
would you, when you do that, I would ask you to think about including our legislative delegation as.
Oh, we are doing that.
CCs.
We do that now.
Okay, all right, good. The second thing is, a while back, legislation was proposed.
Yes.
Let's see, A, did it expire because the legislative session came to a close? Or is it still active, and what's going on with it?
I know it's certainly not active. Whether or not it's expired or not, I would have to check into and get back with you. That I'm not sure, because I don't know if it even got filed in the end. Mike was following that, and I can certainly check into it, but I believe, generally speaking, when it's passed the way we passed it at town meeting, I don't believe that that the session affects it per se, because it's a request that's been put forward by a town. Certainly, it's not realistic to expect that a town is going to put it as a standing warrant article on town meeting year after year until it gets motion. So I'm making an educated guess here, but I believe it can still be activated, but it hasn't gone anywhere.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My only comment would be that we've asked this question going back to the previous finance director and town accountant, and I don't think we're ever gonna get an answer to this question.
We will never get an answer.
No.
It's unfortunate,
it's an
because
ongoing-
as
right.
Howard mentions, the legislature would have been an answer to the question,
Right.
but it seems really odd.
Right.
We might ask the three folks that are running for governor, but they wouldn't. They probably couldn't read it. In fact, well, we could have somebody read it to them.
Well, and again, we're treating it in a reasonable manner, that the many other towns of Massachusetts are struggling with the same thing.
Absolutely.
And we're at least trying to move forward in as legal a way as
This is the
possible.
closest legality we can
Exactly.
come up with.
So let me ask this question then, David. You indicated the fund balance, and my memory is the same, it was about $400,000 we're talking
Yes.
about here? So if town meeting decided to not transfer it, and it was retained in the stabilization fund, or?
Well, if town meeting voted not to do this transfer, then we would probably have to alter the amount in Article 3, or conversely, you could leave it still segregated as unexpended, unencumbered.
So my question to you would be, and we'll follow Peter on this one, is what's the downside, or what's the risk of not putting it into this special fund?
Well, if you don't put it in the special fund, basically, what would happen at that point is, not that we're not doing this now, but we would have to certainly make sure that, based on the most current data available, that the cable access budget did not exceed the revenue coming in. That's what it is right now. Right now, it's a special revenue fund. It operates on a twice annual payment made by charter over to us, plus has that extra balance in there that was unexpended from back to 2004, I believe, when the account first started up. If that was moved out or taken out at that particular point, then if you operate it as a special revenue fund, it can't run a deficit.
Right.
If we really want to go out there a little bit, I suppose you could go so far, and I've never heard of it being done, but you could call that revenue a local receipt and fold cable into the general budget. But the only problem with that is then, once again, we'd run into another proviso within the revenue share agreement, because obviously we can't split off, that revenue is dedicated revenue now. If you change the funding mechanism, it still have to stay dedicated.
Well, that's an interesting question, but that's a rat hole, that's a hole I don't wanna go down at this point in time.
Right, it's,
Has the new cable, has a new contract been negotiated with Charter?
right now it's on extension. There's an extension until April.
And do we know what the revenue impact is gonna be for the cable PEG access group? Is it gonna cover that cost?
Well, the negotiation
For
itself?
Barry and for,
Well, right now it does. Right now, it's within $10,000 a year, at the current rate that the receipts come in. So,
I mean, if we know that, then it would seem to me that this, and I may be playing devil's advocate, I'm not sure I've made up my mind yet, but, you know, if we're playing that, we know that it's gonna cover those costs going forward, and we have this $400,000 out there, why wouldn't we say segregate $100,000, put it aside, and use the other $300,000 in a way that would be more useful to the town?
well, then that gets into the entire argument of the fact that obviously Peter has an opinion on it, and I think there's opinions on both sides of this. I
Because
mean,
my comment would be, why not give it back?
Well, you could, what's one option. I mean, we were also gonna be looking at an article here that talks about the need for, fire equipment. I mean, we all know that we wanna save as much as we can in terms of the stabilization fund. So, I mean, I'm
Well,
asking the question to make sure that,
I guess the most compelling argument is that some would look at it as a segregated tax. It's a tax on one population of the town and not the rest. And why should that one population pay more in than everybody else is for the same
well,
services,
that goes to Mark's comment, that we should give it back.
you know? So, I mean, I guess some of the issue that I've heard out there is the fact that, right now, the cable access budget runs pretty much like a town budget. Barry's not given the ability to spend more just because he's got a dedicated revenue source. So generally, whatever percentage reduction we're giving to the town budgets, he's getting the same budget. But there has been discussion about putting a studio in the new high school and other equipment that he wishes to purchase or that he's gonna be talking with the Cable Advisory Committee about. So, I mean, there's plenty of different arguments that goes around as to what to do about this, you know?
Let's be careful about the budget, because my memory system of the way the budget works is that, in fact, the amount of money that comes in due to people paying the fee
Mhm.
exceeds the general operating expenses and salary for Barry's organization.
Not by much, though.
But he
Maybe
al-
10,000.
But he also buys so-called capital equipment
Mhm.
during the course of a year, and has every year since we've done a budget.
Well, there's a capital equipment line within his budget that he uses. That's within that same amount of money. A couple of times, he's also raised additional money for other items at subsequent town meetings outside of his budget. But he expends regularly for capital, out of his general budget line. Usually he has a flat line of about $50,000.
Yes.
So, he certainly uses it to continue to upgrade and modernize his equipment. But, what we're trying to do here is at this point in time, we're just trying to find the best method. And then after this, it's really up to town meeting.
Does the town manager have an opinion on this?
The town manager has reluctantly supported continuing what we're doing. I mean, the money's there, it's always a temptation. I can't say that I haven't looked at it twice and say, boy, it would be nice, but,
You've sinned in your heart.
yeah, the problem is, once it's gone, it is gone.
Right.
and, without a full vision of everything that's going to be going on with cable going into the future, it sounds like it's a lot of money, but once it's spent, you have no way of recouping that. So up to this point, we've resisted the temptation to really go after it.
Well, it would seem to me that we've been kicking this ball around for a long time now, and what I would suggest is now that we have a contract in place with Charter, and we know that element of it, it's time that someone actually take a hard look at this, and then, figure out what is reasonable for if we have to close it down at some point in time, if we need, to fund operating deficits in the account. Capital costs, as you outlined it, but it seems to me $400,000 is in excess of all those concerns, so I would,
This is I'm sorry.
I would, would like to see if we could get some understanding about
Well,
that could be better, those funds could be better utilized.
I think you'll find as this contract gets negotiated, that's really gonna more or less set the future of where we're going with these operations. I mean, certainly, we would like to get some funding out of Charter, maybe for something at the new high school that we wouldn't have to pay, or we definitely want to get high-speed connections over to the police departments for off-site backups and things like that. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of moving parts to look at this, and I think it'll come a lot clearer once we start the
But
Charter
presently, there
negotiation.
is no new contract with Charter.
At the moment,
We
no.
just spread out the one we had.
Right now, our contract has just been extended until April,
Okay,
at all the same rates.
that was,
Okay.
Just one more aside around funding. Let's see, I think that it is highly imprudent for people to talk about, we just finished building a studio in the so-called old high school. To now talk about funding, building a studio in the new, if it isn't in the current plan,
Well, I mean, there's all different ways to kind of skin that cat. You can certainly, I've spoken to Barry at length about the practicality of having two full-blown studios. There's, that you can certainly make an argument of transportation and upgrading of the original one, taking some of the equipment from there and reestablishing it in the new high school and leaving sort of a real bare bones operation in the old high school. That's why it's so premature as to figuring out exactly where we're going with this, because we've really got to flesh all that out. So at this point in time, we're pretty much keeping it as a standard transfer until that's all figured out.
Anything else regarding Article 2 transfers from our board? Thank you, David. Audience, please. Does anyone wish to comment or ask questions?
The special legislation that the town asked for was in fact filed. It went to committee, but that was the end of it. As far as not getting response from DOR, it's not a surprise to me, because there cannot be any question to begin with. The law is very, very clear and very specific. All monies paid into the town go into the general fund, subject to appropriation by town meeting for any purpose for which towns may expend money, unless some special rule applies. Special rules such as the enterprise funds, the water and sewer account, and so forth. None of those apply. So for years, the town of Uxbridge has been operating it outside the requirements of the law. And if you remember a few town meetings ago, the poor town manager got up and said regarding the special legislation, no, what we're doing is not illegal,
but we need this law to make it legal, which is a contradiction in terms. And it was embarrassing to say the least. The fact is that the law requires any fund that we have. If town meeting appropriates money, if the department doesn't spend all that money, it goes back into the general fund for appropriation, for any reason. If you look at, David has a list of the turnbacks. Every department turns back money.
But that's
And
what the
that's a
article is
good
doing.
thing. What?
That's what the article is doing.
Well, no,
No, it's
the article isn't doing.
No,
It
segregating
was
up the
put back
receipts.
into the general fund,
Right,
free cash, by operation of law.
right.
And what this article says, we're gonna scoop it out and put it in this special account. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is when we tell people at town meeting that this is really something we have to do or should do. And if we want to do that for the cable account, we should, in my view, do it with the monies that the building department takes in for building permits. That money should stay in or go to free cash as the law requires. And then at town meeting, we get up and say, we want you to put this money they turned back, put it back in the building department's account. So they can spend that money on things that they want to do. And the same with the electrical department, same with the
Okay,
Board of
let's
Health.
stick to this article, which is about the transfer to PEG Cable Access. We're not going to rebuild the budget tonight,
Well, no,
please.
no, I'm not rebuilding the budget. What I'm trying to do is get across the idea that we should be fair and honest and do the right thing. Now, as far as continuing monies, the town has the absolute right to tell Charter they must give us 5% of revenues from cable access and give it to us. That's a tax imposed by the Board of Selectmen. In the same way that the town sets fees for various things. But that money doesn't go to those individual departments. It goes to the general fund. And David would be very reluctant to give up that money that we don't spend in those departments. To give you an idea how idiotic this thing has become, because when you have a sum of money that is going to be mine, and it's going to be spent how I want, no matter what the department is, then you start looking at ways to spend money. There are three parts of cable. It's called PEG. That means public access, government access, and education. Okay? Most of the money we spend is for PEG access. We have three, teleprompters, very expensive cameras and so forth. The reality is that it's very seldom utilized, very seldom utilized. I probably utilize it as much as anyone.
However, it is required by law, is it not?
What's required by law? Do you have PEG access?
Yes.
No. No, it is not. It's not required by law. The law is that the licensing authority may require that the cable company provide us with PEG access, and we may require that they pay us up to the 5%. PEG access is not required
Sir,
by any law.
I feel that your discussion is moving significantly away from the fact of whether or not we should transfer the unexpended, unencumbered money that has come in specific to this article.
I'm sorry, I
Would you
thought I
be
was
able to-
responding to a specific question that you asked me.
You did. Let's move on.
Okay. So did the answer satisfy you?
No.
Okay. To put this money back in inflates the budget needlessly and foolishly. Barry's latest plan, because there's very little demand for actual public access, he wants to hire someone to do, quote, public access. And that's what he wants to do. And the idea of a mobile television production studio has not left the wish stage, you know. We need to be fair, we need to be honest, we need to treat every department the same. If we want to have PEG access, fine. You establish a budget for it, you decide what you want to do. In my view, if the cable is going to serve some educational purpose, then that should rightfully be part of the school budget, so we know what we're spending money for. It's at a time when we're not replacing roads and bridges and so forth, and we're not maintaining buildings, to have $500,000 sitting there under the false premise that this money should be treated in a special way is simply not sustainable, and we should stop doing it.
So,
Thank
so Peter, if I can follow up, your recommendation would be that this article not pass,
Yes.
and therefore the logical sequence then would be part of, and help me, David, on this, that this would be part of the general fund and then transferred to stabilization or some
No,
other?
it's part of the general fund, whatever you do with it is there. Town meeting voted a budget to operate PEG access, and as David said, the budget we voted closely approximates the revenues, the annual revenues.
Right. What
This money is the accumulated,
that meant is, next question is,
yeah.
transfer of all that's left to stabilization. So if we didn't do it here, the natural progression would be in Article 3 that it would go to
That's correct. That's correct.
All right.
Like,
And you-
exactly the same with all the department turnbacks.
Exactly, so it's
Yeah.
part of free cash, in other words,
That's exactly right.
and that would be your recommendation.
That's my recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
And I say that as someone who, as you know, is a
Ardent user.
ardent user of it.
Yes.
Because I don't put my personal selfish interests above the interests of the town and the people of the town. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on Article 2? Right, thank you.
Can I
Article, oh,
make
sure.
just one follow-up comment? I just think the one thing that I brought up earlier, there is no new contract. Okay, the one that we have is extended. Okay, we have a makeup of the Board of Selectmen. And I'm just, the thing I want to caution is that if we don't do this, and then the contract doesn't contain anything for PEG access, because the boards makes up of different people, that we may come back and say, oops. So that's my idea. We need to be a little careful.
That's a good point.
Madam Chair, can I recommend, I'd like to make the motion that we take Article 7 out of order so that we can have the fire chief and his offspring home at a reasonable hour.
Any argument on that? Right. Article 7. Purchase of a new rescue apparatus. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds the sum of $300,000 for the purpose of purchasing and equipping a new rescue apparatus for the fire department. And further, to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow up to $300,000 under Chapter 44 of the Mass General Laws or any other enabling authority, that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to apply for and accept any federal or state funds or grants and/or gifts of any kind for the purpose of this acquisition, or to take any other action relative thereto.
Good evening.
Thank you, Chief.
Madam Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Maharay. I think you're maybe just a little nervous that she's going to come up with questions for the future articles, and you want to negate those, so it's probably a good move.
In due time.
It's probably a good move. Members of the Finance Committee, what you have in front of you is probably something that you could put in the category of a continuation of a discussion that we started in June. As you recall, I came before the Finance Committee looking for a reserve fund transfer to address an issue that we had with Engine 5. In particular, that was a 1984 pumping apparatus that we had purchased brand new, but it had outlived its useful life, and we were facing a steep cost of repairs to carry on a losing battle. With the cooperation and support of the Finance Committee, we were able to use the repair money that we had remaining in our budget last year, coupled with the funds that were provided by the Finance Committee to purchase a short-term replacement vehicle, a used piece of apparatus that is now in service as Engine 4. That vehicle went online at the end of July. It's a 1983 pumping apparatus. Again, it's not designed for the purpose that we're using it for, and as I spoke to the Finance Committee in June, our tactic in this is to change the kind of methodology of how we're doing our rescue business. Right now, we have rescue equipment scattered across different apparatus in the department, mostly because that's where it fits, and we're able to carry it, and we're not able to concentrate it on one vehicle. The replacement vehicle that's proposed in this article would replace Engine 4, that 1983 truck that was put online at the end of July. It would replace it with a different style of vehicle, a smaller amount of water, a smaller pump, but designed for the purpose of carrying the rescue equipment, the heavy extrication equipment like the Jaws of Life and associated equipment such as that, some stabilization equipment for rollover motor vehicle accidents, some equipment for confined space entry, a variety of other tasks that we assign to a rescue company for that purpose. I don't want to reiterate things that the committee is already aware of, but I think it's worth noting that this was in our capital plan. It was proposed that we would replace Engine 5 in 2005. I believe that we formulated that version of the capital plan that's still in existence in 2004, late 2004. Our figure estimated at that time that we would need $400,000 to purchase the apparatus. The proposal that you have in front of you is certainly a trimmed down number to $300,000, and I have a committee of firefighters working with a number of vehicle or apparatus manufacturers to assemble the specifications for that in anticipation of the town meeting action. Where, quite frankly, 400 was probably the right number, but we believe we can work within the number that's provided, and we really came to that number based on what we could realistically do and what the town, under the current constraints that the town is under, could manage to do. So
So the total cost will be no more than $300K?
that's right. The $300,000 is what we're asking to be appropriated for this project. We will be reusing the equipment that's on Engine 4 and the other apparatus. And again, what this truck really is the truck. It's got a small pump and a small tank so that we can operate at a motor vehicle accident as a single company. The reason that we do that is because there are times in our operational periods that that's really what we can field. But there are times that other apparatus will supplement that, but we believe that this is the right approach for us. And it will carry, like I said, all of the rescue equipment will be concentrated on this truck. It'll be its primary purpose.
And it's gonna be a new truck,
It is, brand new.
brand new?
What's the useful life?
25 years.
So,
I would direct your attention also, members of the committee, to the, and you may not have this any longer, I'd be happy to forward it if you would like, but if you recall, I assembled a listing of the vehicles that the department has with the age and the engine hours, the funding source, and so forth. This will fit properly into the plan, and we expect that, again, having had discussions with the Finance Committee in the past, and your, I think, hope that we could do some capital planning and be able to fund some of these capital purchases through line item budgets in the future. I think this falls into the progression well as far as projects fall off, another project coming up.
So this will replace the, 25-year-old truck you bought to replace the 30-year-old truck?
Yes.
Okay.
So how many years are you gonna bond this out? 10 years?
And I guess I have questions of David too, but let's make sure we're done with Peter.
Okay,
But we'll stick around if you want to discuss the
Chief,
numbers.
As you described this vehicle, you also described a general scenario of how it would be used, which is primarily to accidents where there's the potential of fire, but there's also the potential for personal injury.
Right.
And that's sort of the reason for calling it a rescue vehicle. This is probably unfair from a surprise standpoint, but the number of calls that your department responds to, how many of them fall into that category versus my house is on fire?
I can't-
Or a forest is on fire?
I can't give you a hard number. I can tell you, you know, like anything else in our business, it runs and fits and starts. I can also tell you, though, this would be the primary response vehicle for instance, incidents up on Route 146, where we spend a fair amount of time, where actually folks may have noticed, the public may have noticed, the last 2 weeks, we've been pretty active down on Millville Road at Universal Junkyard, because they've been providing us with some vehicles for us to do extrication training. And one of the things that we're trialing is we've received a donation that will purchase stabilization equipment. We see a lot of rollovers up on the highway today because of the speeds and because of the types of accidents that we're seeing up there. So anecdotally, I can tell you can I say it's a third of our calls or something like that? No, I can't, Howard, but I can tell you that we do a fair amount. And the goal of this truck is to have everything in one package to meet a couple of goals. Number one is whatever circumstance for rescue-type events, and that could be a motor vehicle accident, it could be a collapse, a trench collapse, it could be a vehicle into a building where we have to shore the building up and perform rescue things there. It could be investigations such as carbon monoxide release, gas release into a
Confined
building,
spaces
those
and-
kinds of things. So I think that this vehicle is going to fit well into our program and reduce to a degree some of the responses that we do with engine companies. This would fit into those categories as well. But I don't have a number or a percentage, if you will, of runs, because it's obviously unpredictable. We have to do what we have to do when we're faced with something, but we think that this is the right approach. The other thing that we're trying to aggressively deal with, given the type of fire department that we are, a combination fire department, where we have a couple of people on duty, full-time on shift to respond to calls, and then the rest of the folks to supplement them get called in on a per-call basis. We're trying to improve the safety of our personnel. As you'll notice on the vehicles, that we no longer let personnel ride on the outside of the vehicle, that we require that personnel be dressed before they get on the vehicle, and that they are wearing seat belts when they're going down the road in the vehicle. The other thing that we're trying to do, especially on Route 146, but generally speaking, is eliminate personal vehicles on scenes, because it adds to the confusion and it creates another exposure for us as far as our personnel are concerned. The Ford and the vehicle, the Engine 4 now, both ride two people, an operator and a passenger. These are typically 4 to 6 person companies, so we're running at least one other vehicle behind it, you know, and we're going to be able to reduce that out and have the crew operate from this one vehicle. And again, continuing with our reduction of the number of vehicles on the emergency scenes, and especially on the highway.
Thank you.
Other questions?
A question of David.
I have a couple of questions, Chief, excuse me. How did you lower the amount? What changed so that it was down from 400 to 300,000?
Well, I can give you a couple of areas that we're looking at very closely. One is we're really wrestling with some options, if you will. So we're taking some things off that we think are appropriate for the truck to to get down to the number. So we're whittling away at things like whether or not we have a large generator that's built onto the truck, or do we put a small portable generator and use the limitations of that, use it up to that limitation. There are some pieces, for instance, for the jaws of life themselves, we're going to have some reels on the truck for the hydraulic hose. It makes it easier to deploy and manage on the incident scene. But to supply the power for those, the hydraulic generation, what we'd like to do is install an electric pump for the hydraulic fluid. We probably won't be able to do that in the $300,000. We'll probably have to use the gasoline-powered one that we have. So we're kind of trimming away at that. Another fairly significant chunk of it comes from the style of the cab that we're talking about. There's two types of vehicle that we've looked at. One is what they call a custom cab, and one is a commercial cab. Commercial cab is very similar to the delivery vehicles that you see driving around. We would use a commercial cab that has 4 doors and is able to seat 4 or 5 people for this truck. The downside to that is it extends the wheelbase, so it makes it longer and it makes it harder to turn in a tight area. The custom cab would seat 6 people, and it would have some space in it for us to be able to do a few things that we won't be able to do in the commercial cab. But the custom cab is significantly more money, and the committee is really wrestling right now with the approach to that cab issue. We've talked to the vehicle manufacturers, and we're talking budget prices, but so far, we're really not able to get a custom cab without, taking the square wheels instead of the round ones. We've pared the thing down so much that we don't think it's a logical move. So the committee has more work. We're going to meet again next week to look at the next version of specifications, but I think those are some areas that's how we're paring it down.
You have a terrific outline of what the vehicles you have and when they should have been replaced and so forth. Can you give us, the committee, a really quick rundown of the next 2 or 3 anticipated purchases beyond this?
Sure.
Especially the timelines.
Because we've been able to do some things with grant funding and through staggered purchases, we had, we're in pretty decent shape. I think that when I look at it, the next larger piece that comes up is engine 3, which is a 1995, and we're shooting at 2020 on that truck. So we have a little bit of time. But I will also, fairly warn the community and the committee that, we have some other capital issues, not the least of which is our buildings that we have to deal with. One of the constraints, if you will, that we're dealing with on the rescue truck and that we've dealt with on the last 3 vehicle purchases is the size of the doors and the ability of the station to hold modern apparatus. So when I go to manufacturers right now, and we talk about the things that we're trying to do, let me divert for a second. One of the things that we're going to accomplish in this project, given affirmative action from the town meeting, is we're going to be able to take our hazmat trailer and eliminate it and fold that equipment into this truck. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to put large compartments on the roof of the rescue body itself with a ladder to safely access it, but that's material that we don't pull off every day, but we'll have with us immediately rather than waiting for another piece of equipment to come, and we're taking another piece of stock off the list. That said, when I go to the manufacturers and I say, this is what I want to do, they say, that's great, and then I put the caveat that it can't be greater than 9'4" in height. And they all say, oh. And then usually after a long pause, it's, well, how long can we go? Because if you're going down, you got to go out. And so it's a limitation. So even though 2020 is a ways down the road, and I feel relatively comfortable that, we don't have any large capital purchases as far as the fleet goes in that period of time, I think we are going to really seriously going to have to talk about facilities. As you know, the North End Station continues to be an issue, and we have, we have issues in the center as well.
Thank you, that's it.
I have a follow-up question for the chief. Will you have all these issues settled by the fall town meeting?
I'm optimistic that
Always optimistic.
that we'll be able to, if we don't have bid prices, that we'd have the specifications drawn up and at least on the street.
And a dollar amount associated with those?
Yes, but I think that realistically speaking, we're easily going to hit that 300,000.
Okay, because that's my concern. I mean, you talked about a number of things here, and you put a figure here to $300,000. You're still working on the process. I understand you want to do it in the fall versus having to wait for a later meeting, but I would want to make sure that you got all the way to the point where you knew that you were asking for the right figure in terms of funding.
I feel confident that we're going to make the choices that are right for the town. It might not be everything that we want, but we're going to give the town a workable piece of apparatus for $300,000 that's going to meet this project and meet our needs, as far as this project goes.
That's what I want to hear. Otherwise, I'd recommend.
I'd certainly take more money.
Well, I mean, my comment, and David won't want to hear this, but my comment would be, if you feel as if you need, $10,000 more or whatever it is, you should amend that at the fall town meeting in terms of the amount. That's Michigan. Why not? Yeah, I think you could.
It also doesn't say not to exceed in the
Well,
article.
but again, the article hadn't passed.
Right.
It's a warning,
Right.
it's a warning that this is what you talk about.
I appreciate that,
Anyway,
Ed,
but I mean, I
and-
just
and
wanna
I
make
guess
sure-
what
I'm with him, okay? I just want to be clear, I'm with him, but I just want to make sure that you have gone through all the due process you need to do to make sure that you're getting what you need and not feeling as if you, for an extra something or other, that you could have gotten really what you wanted, or what you
Also
needed.
wants to make sure that if his car gets rolled, you don't come over and say, gee, Mr. Maharay.
We'll put the right thing, forward again. But I know that, I know it's difficult in town meeting when you interject, or introduce some of these variables that, in fairness, I think, when we started out, I think the committee and the selectmen and the finance director and the town manager all had a much different number on the other end of the scale. I think we've impressed upon everybody that, 300 is probably a number that we can do the project in, and I'd be afraid of jeopardizing the whole project. But if it's a deal breaker, I'll definitely bring that forward.
We're gonna be able to sell that other truck we just bought?
Yes, actually, I stand by my position that I held in June, that I think we're gonna get our purchase price back for that truck. And I assure you, it will not be here. It will not remain in the fleet. I don't believe in that. I told you that we're gonna replace that with something, and it's truly a replacement. It's not something that's gonna be around. The Uxbridge Fire Department.
You have to be careful because the used car dealer sitting to your right has already started framing the ad on eBay.
I have a question of David now.
Okay, do we have any more questions specific to the chief right now?
You wanna open
We
it?
can certainly, he's going to stay a short
I'll be in the
while.
room
Yep,
until you move on. Thank you.
thanks.
Can I ask a question before I go?
Sure.
Can we call it something?
Could you come to the podium, please, so that the people at home can hear you?
Apparatus?
Sure.
Is truck more descriptive, a rescue truck, because people can visualize that, you can't visualize the apparatus.
That's what the technical term is, all right?
Whatever works.
The question for the people at home was, the chief is calling it an apparatus, would the word truck be more appropriate? And the chief,
It is a rescue truck.
thank you.
It is a vehicle.
And since we all refer to fire trucks, folks would understand that. But I know I went and inspected the fire apparatus, but I couldn't find it. I was looking for a truck.
Go ahead.
David? Obviously, the question is, if you've got $300,000 and you're gonna do a debt service over 10 years, how are you gonna pay for it?
Well, we're gonna pay for it basically out of the debt budget. This is not a debt exclusion, so it would be coming off the top of the debt budget. The good thing is, if we do it over 10 years, based on a 3.25% interest rate, it would basically be costing on average about $35,000 a year. Overall, our overall debt schedule fluctuates up and down within that same range. So at 10 years, we can fit it under and not really cause much pain. You know, in a perfect world, I'd prefer to borrow it over 5, but over 5, you're at about $67,000 a year. That might be a little harder to swallow under the existing levy. So, you know, we basically go out for another 5 years. It costs us basically an extra $5,000 a year.
Okay, and you won't be going out for bid on this till when?
We would be doing this probably in January.
And- Well, when would
Well,
you?
no, I'm
let's-
sorry,
let's put
to
it
sell
this
the
way.
notes.
Sell the notes.
That would be in
Well,
January.
I guess the other question is, so my point anyway was that you have half a year, so if it's 35,000, your exposure in terms of the FY 11 budget
Budget,
is,
6 months.
yeah, 6 months.
There wouldn't be any exposure,
So
actually.
you'll have a better gauge coming for putting the 12 budget together.
Yes. The first payment would start in 12 anyway. The only effect that this is going to have overall is, I believe, we've discussed it a little bit with the board, and I believe I mentioned it to the finance committee that we were going to be going out on the school
You mentioned
probably
it-
in
you mentioned-
November.
You mentioned it last week.
We might defer that until January and just do a quick temporary borrowing for 3 months for the amount we need for that period, so that we can get the truck as part of that borrowing, as well as the Canarson well site, if the Board of Selectmen chooses to go with that. But we need to borrow something because I'm not gonna have the cash flow on the school project. So we'll probably do a quick 3-month note, and then we'd go out permanently in January, February for everything on the list.
Okay. Any other questions, comments at all about Article 7? Terrific.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I know you have a huge viewing audience, so it might be an opportunity to make a shameless plug for our fire prevention open house. It's a week from tomorrow. It's next Wednesday, the 13th. I'd invite the Finance Committee to come on down between 6 and 8 p.m. You're certainly welcome to view the apparatus and our facilities and enjoy our fire prevention, our trucks. Our trucks will all be there. But, you know, if you have the opportunity, we'd be happy to show you the vehicles and the facilities and what we have going on.
What's the date again?
It's the
Next Wednesday.
13th,
Wednesday, the
October
13th?
13th,
We do
from
not have a
6 till
meeting.
8 p.m.
Are you
Do not
going
have a
to
meeting.
do the house fire again?
Actually, we're working on a live fire demonstration. One of the things that we want to ramp up the discussion on in general is twofold. One side of it is residential sprinklers and the effect of residential sprinklers, how effective they are. And the second piece is how quickly fire moves. So we're going to, right now, the idea is that we're going to have a room and contents fire, and it will be timed, and we'll be able to display how quickly from the incipient stage on through full involvement a room burns, so that people will get an understanding of how quickly fire progresses and so forth. And on the other side of that, we're hoping to have a residential sprinkler demonstration that will have the same fire initially and will be controlled by the residential sprinkler system.
Well, I know the vehicle that you have borrowed in the past from
Right, the safe
the
trailer.
is really very effective for even older children, you know, teenagers, et cetera, that demonstrates how to react and respond to
Sure.
a crisis like
We'll have
that.
some props in the station. We'll have different display tables, Howard, that will reinforce those things. We're not going to use the safe trail this year. First of all, I think I like to mix it up a little bit so that we don't always have the same thing. Secondly, we're maybe a little tight for space with some of the displays because we also tentatively have the replacement 911 center coming as a display. So we'll have one of the 911 dispatchers, Chief Freitas, is working with us on that. And we'll have the vehicle that the state has You might have seen news coverage in Somerville where the police station and 911 center and a firehouse, it's all one building, was flooded this past summer. That truck was the replacement 911 center that they operated out of for several weeks while they got that permanent center
That's the
back
one that's
online.
parked,
It was parked over there over the weekend. It's out on a mission right now, but it should be here for the 13th. So, but I certainly invite everybody to attend that.
good.
You bet. Thank you.
Before we move on to Article 3, I may seem a little surly this evening. I'm very, very uncomfortable with my mouth, so I don't mean to be surly. Article 3, transfer to stabilization. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate a sum or sums, including unexpended, unencumbered fund balance, to the stabilization fund account, or take any action relative thereto. David, thank you.
So at least not that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the standard warrant article that we adopted, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago, where anything remaining after the transfer from Article 1 and Article 2, if voted, the remainder would go to stabilization through Article 3, and then if there are any appropriations from stabilization in subsequent articles, it would be subject to a 2/3 vote. So this is a standard operating procedure as brought up, as issued as a recommendation by the Finance Committee, adopted by the full Board of Selectmen.
And as you had mentioned earlier, you do not have a number.
Not at this point.
What is the balance of the stabilization fund as of June 30, 2010?
$1,241,000 and some change.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
I support this article.
Wait till we're done.
Typically, this is Article 1.
Actually, no, it was moved because of, it was one when we started out, but then we recognized that there was a need to do the other articles first.
Yes.
Any public questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Article 8, acceptance of MGL Chapter 59, Section 5, parentheses 4. To see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of MGL Chapter 59, Section 5, parentheses 54, effective July 1st, 2011, to exempt assessment of taxes for personal property accounts with valuations of less than $1,000, or take any other action relative thereto.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
This is basically a method of covering the cost of postage. What we're looking to do is we're looking to establish a minimum fair cash value of personal property at $1,000. Because we've done an analysis, and basically any bill for valuation under $1,000 is not worth the cost of mailing over two periods. It would affect 25 accounts. The average valuation of the 25 accounts is $523.20. Total value of $13,000 would be exempt for billing, effective 2012. If you look at it, at what the effect on the tax levy is, we would be collecting $164.15 less. Now, these accounts will still be tracked. It's not like they just fall off the radar. And whenever their valuation exceeds $1,000, then they would be subject to billing. But at this point in time, we would like to exempt these just to avoid the cost of mailing and collections for something
What are
that's
these?
small.
Is it little pieces of land or something?
No, it's personal property.
Property.
Small business, very small
okay.
businesses.
Like,
Quick question, on the top, it says, at the end, it says Section 5, parentheses 4, and in the article, it says Section 5, parentheses 54. Which one is correct? Slight typographical.
The latter one's gonna be the typo.
It should be 5.
That's why I was, Didn't know if you had looked it up.
Yeah, I believe it's 54.
I believe it's 54.
It's 54.
Okay, so
It
will
would
you
be
follow
nice
up?
if we had a copy of the law. The Commonwealth has helped us all. They've redesigned the website for Massachusetts general laws. And maybe if you're the president of Google, you might be able to figure out how to use it. But I have tried for 4 days to gain access to the index of Massachusetts general laws, and not available. So you have to go through all this rigmarole. One of the things that always concerns me is to accept the provisions of, and then we don't really know which section, so that's why I would like to see the law.
Okay. I'll email you, I can email the Finance Committee a copy of it. And there is a way to search. I looked into it today, but I'm not sure if I could find it again. Because they do have a method to search like they used to, that the old method was very clean and very easy. It's a nightmare now.
Yes.
But the search engine is there, you just gotta look really hard.
Let's see, I've been in email contact with one of the members of our legislative delegation, and the essence is, you've got to be kidding me. And word will be passed that this looks to be quite difficult to use. Some of the staffers are having trouble, so.
Madam Chairman? Paragraph 54, personal property if less than an amount established by city or town, but not in excess of $10,000 of value. This clause shall take effect upon its acceptance by city or town, which shall establish a minimum value of personal property subject to taxation and may modify the minimum value by vote of its legislative body.
So we are modifying, we are looking to modify the minimum amount to 1,000 rather than 10,000, which
That
is
is
the
correct.
state. And it's section 5-54.
It's
Yes.
paragraph 54.
Paragraph 54, thank you. Excellent. Do we have any other questions or comments from the board?
I'm sorry, it was 10,000 to 1,000, is that what you said?
That's right.
Well, it says you can't exempt value in excess of 10,000.
You could exempt up to 10,000.
Up to 10,000, but this,
99.
we're setting the ceiling at 1,000.
Right, we're choosing to just do $1,000.
Okay, set the ceiling, all right, thank you.
Anyone else? Any public comment or question?
Okay.
Article 9, borrowing rescission, balance of high school land authorization. To see if the town will vote to rescind the remainder of the $1,630,000 borrowing authorization in the amount of $260, as authorized in Article 12 of the November 15, 2005 Fall Annual Town Meeting and the January 17, 2006 Special Election Ballot, or taken action relative thereto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was, in going through a review of past town meeting actions, I noted that in April, let's see, in November of 2008, we had a motion to rescind the balance, very similar to this. Of course, it was a little larger at that point. There was an authorization of $380,860. However, the motion wound up reading $380,600, leaving $260. That's basically outstanding on our authorized but unissued. The only way to get rid of this is to do another housekeeping vote.
We're gonna run wild with it, aren't we?
$260, woo!
I think we spent enough time we spent that money just reviewing the articles.
So,
Printing up the warrants.
Any other comments or questions?
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's all right.
Any public questions or comments? I just want to reiterate again, it's $260, not $260,000.
that is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Article 10, acceptance of land donation, Old Elmdale Road. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept a deed in lieu of tax foreclosure pursuant to General Law, Chapter 60, what's the double S?
Section.
Section 77C, conveying fee title to all or portions of the parcel of real estate owned by the Highland Holdings Corporation, and more particularly described on Uxbridge Assessor's maps as map 25, lot 4057, and further identified as Old Elmdale Road, book 2783, page 313. Said land to be conveyed to the town free and clear of any liens or encumbrances except for municipal tax liens, securing payment of outstanding real estate taxes, and upon conveyance to the town to be held for general municipal purposes or for the disposition thereof, by sale or otherwise. Furthermore, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to undertake any act or to execute any document necessary to consummate this transaction with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 60, Section 77C, or to take any other action relative thereto. Oh, you're the sponsor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property has been entitled since 1999. It's basically a quarter acre of land off of Old Elmdale Road. It's wet. The developer has no real interest in doing anything with it at this particular point. Normally, when a property goes into tax title, it will sit there until the town commences a foreclosure action upon it. The downside to that is as time goes on, between the taxes that are not collected off the levy that are assessed to it and the interest that goes on to it, it becomes near impossible to do anything with it until the town forecloses. A land court foreclosure is best described as glacial. It takes forever to get anything foreclosed on in there. The balance of the properties that were in the land court when I arrived here almost 5 years ago are still in land court with no resolution. Accepting the property pursuant to General Law, Chapter 60, 77C, allows the property to be basically gifted to the town as long as there is clear title on it, with the exception of the tax lien. The town gets the property, can therefore then at that point do anything with it that it so sees fit through a vote of the Board of Selectmen. And it basically relieves us of the responsibility of foreclosure, and it saves the cost of said foreclosure. So it's viewed as kind of a win-win situation. The owner of the property originally wanted to deed it as conservation land. That's not allowed pursuant to this general law. It's going to be for any municipal purpose. They're not allowed to gift and not pay the taxes without having, with the town having no say in what to do with it. So basically, we're looking to take title to the property and save the expense of foreclosure.
Okay. For the public, as I don't know where everything is in town, Old Elmdale Road is off Hecla Street to the right after the municipal parks. It's not a particularly long road, and it ends in a dead end. Questions, comments from, yes?
David, if once this is passed, assuming it's passed, then the balance would be wiped out, and we would no longer be, obviously, if it was town property, no longer be putting it on the,
It would become tax exempt until
at that time?
we disposed of it.
Yeah, so there is a bit more of a benefit for you going forward in
Absolutely.
accumulating this problem. And any idea about what the town would do with that? Because I think the town, if I'm not mistaken, has had cases in the past where we have bits of property all over town, but not usable or saleable, and that's what I'm saying. I remember
Yeah.
probably 25 years ago, getting a note from the town saying, here's a piece of property that's adjacent to you, are you interested in buying it? And as far as I know, it's still owned by the town.
Right. Well, at this point in time, it would become a town-owned parcel, and probably at some point, especially with the larger, more marketable parcels, the town should undertake a disposition process. One of the things we needed to do in order to do that was to have all of the town-owned properties basically classified. That was done believe about 2 years ago. So we actually have a binder that shows every piece of town-owned property, how we acquired it, and from there, we can go through and identify the disposition method that we must do, because it's different depending on how we acquired it, and whether or not it makes sense to dispose of those properties. These small ones are usually better off being sold to abutters, if the abutters are interested. There is still a process, we can't just sell it to them, but, you know, the alternative is, it stays out there, taxes are assessed to it, and,
Well, they're not paying us, but since
Right.
taxes are still accumulating, you have to go through the motions of attempting to collect it. So
Right,
it's
and
costing
that's-
us even more money than what we're getting in the taxes.
right, and we also have a chunk of revenue that we'll never receive,
Exactly.
so.
Anyone else? Do we have any public questions or comments on Article 10? Okay. Is there a motion to continue?
I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for the
19th?
19th, is that what it is?
So we're not gonna vote our recommendations.
We are.
We are.
So then why don't we close the public hearing on these articles?
No, we're actually
Because
closing.
as information becomes more available, we may be able to return back to them, even though we voted on them already.
You can vote them again, it's just that you're not gonna hear from the public about it. So the issue would be is, do you want to be able the public to speak? We can deliberate all we want, but if you leave the public hearing open on these, you eventually have to close it, then you have to allow the public to speak.
That's fine.
But if we're gonna vote on it, then we've made up our minds.
Based on the information available through the public hearing process, that's correct, we will vote and
Okay,
make up
so
our
then, once
minds
again,
at the current time. However, until we make our recommendations, and
I
even
thought we were gonna
until...
vote, I thought we were gonna vote tonight.
Wait, please, may I finish?
Okay.
And until town meeting, we have the opportunity to change our vote based on current information.
Right, but you don't need the public hearing open to change your vote.
We won't, we're going to be
Leave it open to
continuing the public
finish the
hearing.
warrant.
Yeah, but you can close it on these particular articles.
Well,
We
we're
are.
not doing that. We're just continuing the public hearing to another date in the future.
I understand that, but so we're not gonna vote on these articles today.
I think we're saying the same thing. We use traditionally, the board here has used the word continue, which means that for the time being, we are closing the public hearing part of our meeting.
That's not what
And we are-
continue means. Unless you vote to close a public hearing, you've just held a public hearing on each of these articles. It's a separate event, because you draw it up as a separate event for each article. So I would say, if we're gonna vote tonight and make our decision tonight, we should close the public hearing on these articles.
Now, the background has been, the Finance Committee, and this goes back before my time, has, because of the length of the public hearing, has needed several nights to review it. To close the public hearing as part of the agenda, that's what the motion's about, okay? A couple of years ago, Howard made the recommendation, I think it was a good one, that instead of waiting until the very end of the public hearing, that we take a sort of a straw vote about what our views are while it's fresh in our mind, but we are leaving it, we've left it open. Howard did this last spring, where we went and looked at each article again to do a final recommendation on the votes, or our recommendations, I'm sorry, to the town meeting.
I say, we've agreed that we would vote on each article. The basis of that agreement was the fact that we would have all of the facts. And then we reserved the opportunity to revote as new facts emerged. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of facts associated with the articles. So, let's see, I'm quite frankly uncomfortable with voting for most of the articles.
Okay, but
that
let's not talk about that right now, because we're deciding whether we're going to continue, and a question was brought up whether we should close our hearings or continue.
I move that we continue the public hearing. I second Ed's motion.
Okay. which Mark already did,
Okay,
so we're discussing.
fine.
So hold
That's
the
why I was
other
trying to
thoughts.
discuss, I mean, you know.
Here's
for
my
crying out
opinion.
loud.
Every board does things differently. Yeah, I know what the planning board does. We've always followed this process and we've never had an issue. We've had an issue the other way,
Where we've closed and then
and then
not.
we had to go through the
Okay.
process.
The only, I went through this with the Worcester County District Attorney's Office, because they handle the open meeting process in the county for this type of deals, and when I was chairman of the planning board, you're not required to vote to open a public hearing, and you can always vote or re-vote your decision on a public hearing. The only thing is you can't take public comment. So my thing is, if we plan on hearing more from the public, then we leave them open. But if you're telling me people are ready to vote tonight on a recommendation, regardless of whether down the road you want to change your vote, you can always make a motion to re-vote it, your opinion. Then we should leave it open if you
But
want
I
to
don't
do public.
understand this, why make it that difficult?
Huh?
Well, you have to, each article, you have
Because
to.
technically, you're not supposed to
Open,
vote,
close.
technically, you're not supposed to vote on an article unless the public hearing is closed. Because what you're saying to the public is, it's open. We're gonna allow you to come back and give more influence to us, but yet we've already voted it. So, to say now, this is closed, this discussion is closed for the public, we still can deliberate as a board, then I don't think we should vote. If you're gonna leave the public hearing open, if you're just gonna make a blanket, this is a public hearing for the entire warrant, then I don't think we should vote tonight.
Okay.
All right.
Any more discussion on the motion to continue? Can I get a vote? Yes?
Yes.
5-0. Thank you. John, your point is well made. I disagree, but your point is well made.
Well,
It's kind of tough to have the discussion in the middle of the process. It's not something that came up before, unfortunately, and as Mark said,
part of the open meeting is the way you're telling people what's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
And by leaving the public hearing open, what you said to the public is you can come back and comment on these things we discussed.
yes.
So then there's no reason for us to vote, because why would we vote without public hearing if we're gonna allow them to come back and discuss it?
But I guess, well, I get two comments I would make. One of them is, if,
I thought we were done with this.
Yeah, Ed, I'm sorry.
I said I thought we were done
I'd
with
like to
this.
move on.
well, okay, the question is, are we gonna do, the next step? Are you gonna?
We are gonna do the next step.
I'm ahead of you, sorry.
That's okay. So, at the current time, we're going to, vote on the 7 articles, or not vote, on the seven articles that were presented to us tonight. Article 1 was transfer of UU fund balance to Water Enterprise Fund. Do I have a motion?
Well, I think we need a discussion first. I mean, John's telling us something that is news to me and probably to Howard and all the rest of us. I think there's nothing here that's compelling that needs to be voted on tonight in terms of the recommendation. I would, however, like to follow up this conversation to ask the town manager or somebody, general counsel, to give us a better understanding about whether what we have been doing is appropriate, because I think it is. I mean, I'm very comfortable with what we're doing because it's timely and for us. But, you know, if we've been warned that it may not be the right thing, I would like to know what the right thing is.
Well, yes, I agree, and I'd like to see some documentation which says this is what the right thing is, because I think that, and I don't want to belabor this anymore, but I believe that we owe the public the opportunity to input until we close the public hearing completely.
I agree.
And if we don't do that, I think we're not serving the public well. And that's unfortunate in my view, because in many cases, the public is not served well.
I agree, and even that we structure how we look at the different warrant articles by what information may or may not be available. So, for example, the articles that we've looked at tonight, generally speaking, are without significant controversy. They are pretty straightforward or even routine. However, things may change. We're gonna hopefully get some more solid numbers as it gets later, when we're still in an open session for the entire warrant.
Madam
So
Chair,
that's how I've always felt about it.
can I make a motion that we seek clarity on this procedural issue, and that we ask, I guess, starting with the town manager, maybe it has to go to the town council or the attorney general, you know,
The Secretary of State directed me to Early's office.
Okay,
He said they're the enforcement.
okay. I would start with town manager, simply because he handles all the legal issues here and is a lawyer himself, but I mean, whatever we need to do to get clarity on it.
This could make our budget process.
So you'd like to request clarification from town manager?
And others as required. Okay.
Mhm. Regarding continuation versus closing, bless you,
Yeah,
Well-
and recommendations,
and recommendations.
timing of recommendations.
I'm sorry, and what?
The timing.
The timing. Okay. Great. I don't feel if we need to make a motion on it.
No, I mean, whatever. I just,
We can
if we want it
certainly-
in the minutes.
Yes. I think so, it hasn't really
Oh, So
come up.
what are you asking the town manager? Is it required to continue a public hearing?
No, I think
So-
we're looking for clarity about the procedures we need to follow on the public hearing and on the recommendations.
Any more quick discussion on this? We okay to vote then?
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to request clarification, per our discussion. Aye,
Aye.
5-0, thank you. Okay, do we want to vote tonight, or do we want to wait? We'll have 2 weeks.
I would wait. I think we should get an answer in 2 weeks.
Sure.
All the
To
better.
see if we get, not only an answer, but to see if we get some more information.
I want the answer in writing too, possible.
Oh, yeah.
In writing? Absolutely.
I mean, this affects not only this committee, but affects, obviously, as you said, the planning board.
Well, yeah, what's the protocol for public hearings?
Right.
Right? And if it falls under the open meeting law, I would suggest it's no longer the district attorney who enforces it, but it's the attorney general, based upon what I've read so far. And
What
So
are
we're
the
gonna-
rules?
yeah,
If
so
it
we're
makes our
gonna find
job
out.
harder, it just makes it harder.
All right, then we're moving on to old business. First on that is the Charter Review Committee. Peter Demers sent me the appointments list of people whom he contacted. We had 3 yeses.
Yep.
Barbara Hall.
Excuse me.
You don't want to hear them all?
I can hear them here, but I don't want to.
Barbara Hall, Arthur Dubois, Peter Emmerich. None of the other, from the original committee that Peter contacted said yes. They were either not able to make contact, we had a couple of no's and a maybe. So would we like to appoint 2 of these individuals tonight? Would someone like to make a motion?
let's see, I would make the motion that we, since 3 folks have said yes, that we recommend the appointment of Barbara Hall and Peter Emmerich.
Second?
We can only appoint 2.
2.
Yeah. The town moderator has 3, and the other 2 boards have 2 each.
As representatives of the Finance Committee
Right.
to the Charter Review Committee. When this was on last week, when I first looked at it, I thought it meant the charter. Cable, yes, and I was totally unprepared when I got here, and I was like, oh, that charter. So, sorry about that. And we have a second,
Barbara, Peter, and
Art
Artie were
Dubois with
all-
a 3.
were all on the Charter Commission before.
Yes, and they all said yes to being on the review. So the motion is for appointment of Barbara Hall and Peter Emmerich. Discussion? No discussion? Okay. I'm sorry, is there any public
This isn't,
question or comment?
this isn't a public hearing.
We're allowed to ask,
Oh,
though.
okay.
The chair can ask for public input at any time. He can't put any.
Sorry, I'm still writing, okay. Okay,
I'm not sure about this Barbara Hall character, I don't know.
let's, you think you're not sure of her decision-making skills?
Yeah, from some of the choices she's made in her life, I think that.
Well, let's see, the only discussion I would have is that I hope that after they organize at the end of the full annual town meeting, and they start holding meetings that they do, and I'll probably get several of them angry with me, that they do a better job of listening than the Charter Commission did before.
Okay.
Because when the Charter Commission before had their public hearings, there were 10, 12 people there were only 2, by the way. There were 10 or 12 people at each one, and not one single suggestion or recommendation was followed, which I found very interesting.
It is very
That's-
interesting. Are we ready to vote? So for the appointment again, Barbara Hall and Peter Emmerich. Yes or aye? 4-0.
He's not even
It's
here.
considered an extension? No.
No, it's not. He actually shouldn't even been in the room.
Great, okay.
But he can't influence me with his looks.
Under old business, are there any reports for us? Not as far as I know. Okay. I'm choosing, unless there's something very pressing, which I have not heard about, I'm skipping new business, and, which leads us to number 5. Motion to adjourn?
Why are you skipping new business? I have new business.
Okay. If it's necessary, I'll tell you
In case I
why.
don't-
I will tell you why.
It's gonna be 2 seconds.
No,
Don't
I know, but let me just,
Well, maybe
in the past, because we have so many, meetings, that, we have skipped old and new business, et cetera, for most of them. However, we actually had old business tonight, that's all.
No, it's okay. No, and the only reason is if in the event when the board does vote, if I'm not here for this PEG access vote, or the transfer of that, just so you know that Peter's correct, there was no law that requires PEG.
I'm sorry, which Peter?
Peter Begsarian.
Thank you.
But pursuant to Section 6+1 of the Communications Act by the Federal Communications Commission, a local franchising authority may require cable operators to set aside channels for public, educational, or governmental use. So my thing is, since we originally contracted that they have PEG, we should be using the money for PEG. So that's my 2 cents.
I wonder, could you find a regulation which says that the DOR director should respond to questions?
I can try.
Uh,
I can try.
That would be one that I would like to see.
Okay, move to adjourn? No, wait, did anyone else want to comment on that?
I'm
just
sorry,
kidding.
do you actually
Yeah, I
want to address?
just got a quick question.
Oh.
In regards to, we do have information that might be helpful to your decision. We have the survey that was done
Yes.
recently that included questions in regard to PEG funding and so on.
Okay.
I could speak with the cable advisory chair to get you that information. We're hoping to, have it presented to the Board of Selectmen within the few weeks, I
Okay.
believe, so.
Our next,
That was my next question.
meeting and
Have you guys?
subsequent, warrant review is the 19th.
Okay.
And then after that, I believe it's the 26th is the following Tuesday. And that week
Okay.
will be both the Tuesday and Wednesday,
Are you,
26th
are
and
you
27th.
narrowing just personal,
Yes.
but just on Tuesdays? Are you
No,
gonna- you gotta do
Tuesday and Wednesday, the
Okay.
26th and 27th. We have just found that the level of discussion is not
Okay.
as high, so we're able to cut down.
Just for
on our-
scheduling meeting purposes, Peter sent me an email with a bunch of dates.
That's right.
And there was a possibility of narrowing it down, so,
Right.
okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So to follow up on the post office conversation, it's the 19th, the 26th, and the 27th.
That's right, currently. Okay, we had, and I'm sorry if I missed it, we had a movement to adjourn, a motion, excuse me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Quarter of. Well done, you should be cranky more often.